Hi, everyone. Welcome. Glad to have everyone here. Thanks for joining us.
Hello there. It's so good to see everyone, and thanks for being here. I've been busy at work being the founder of FDN and a FDN practitioner, and hoping that everybody is here for the same purpose. Mission is to help as many people as possible get well and stay well naturally, and educate them to do that so that they in turn may go and educate others. We're basically an education company, bunch of do-gooders learning how to save people's lives and then support ourselves as we do that. So a lot of us are entrepreneurs, and I'm really pleased to be going over these slides coming up. Wish I knew what was on them, but okay. Hey, we have a lot of fun here at FDN. I want everybody to take a deep breath, grab your coffee, whatever it is, and get ready to rock and roll here. Thank you, Elizabeth. You've been such a great partner in teaching the FDN course. It's really remarkable. As we interview our graduates, and we interview every graduate, I've done over 2,000 interviews, and I keep hearing the same thing. Amazing program, great staff, wonderful support, and all the things that any business should have. But of course, very special accolades to Elizabeth and the teaching team, the mentors, and you, Elizabeth. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Reed. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here with you today. And thanks everyone who's joining us. I see we've got more attendees hopping on. We've got about 40 of you in the room right now. Welcome to all of you. We're so happy to see you here. I am the course supervisor, so it is my honor to be able to deliver this amazing course that Reed has invented and put together and has been teaching now for 15 years out in the world. We've got about 4,000 FDN practitioners out there who have gone through the program and have been educated. So this is a big community, and there are FDNs everywhere. Every time we travel, we run into FDNs anywhere we go. So it is a growing community of vibrant people who are really interested in making the world a healthier and better place.
Amen to that.
So Reed and I are going to go through some of our introductory lessons in the actual course. So you're going to get a little sneak peek here inside the actual course and inside the course material. This is available in our Start for Free program, where we do put 9 lessons throughout the course available for you to go through at your own pace to see if you like it, if you jive with the way that we teach, if you jive with the material, if you are excited by this approach. And so Reed and I are pretty honored today to be able to jump on with you and teach this live. So today we're going to jump into what in the course is our module 1, but it's about FDN philosophy and how we work.
Perfecto. And if you want, folks, you can put in the in the chat where you're from and what you do, if you want to. Normally, I don't watch the chat very much, but I'll be sharing the spotlight with Elizabeth here, and I might just peek at it.
Yeah, and we've got Brenda on as well, who is able to monitor the chat, bring things to our attention, and answer questions when they come up. So we are ready to jump in. FDN stands for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, Carol. So that is the name of our organization.
And really quickly on that, Carol, thank you, is I had to name the first class I ever taught. You know, I hadn't really considered a name for what I had been doing in the office for 10 years. So for 10 years, I was in the office. I was running thousands of labs on thousands of people. And then when I was asked to teach, I put a class together, and they said, "What are you going to call it?" You know, and so now we're kind of stuck with it. but it's very foundational. It's very data driven. It's very nurturing. FDN could be, foundational, data driven, nurturing. We call it functional diagnostic nutrition because that's, I was a nutritionist running labs, not providing medical diagnosis, but obviously providing data driven protocols for people. And that's kosher. All right, let's get started.
Let's do it. Are you going to share your screen, Reed?
Yeah, we'll keep talking for a sec.
Okay, great. Yep. So I like to think of our name also as running a functional diagnostic. So out of 100% function, what has been lost and where? And that's really what the labs tell us as part of our method. So seeing a lot of people from Canada. Welcome all the Canadians. We've got some Scotland in there, Oregon, Virginia, a lot of health coaches who are joining us. That's fantastic. Adding labs to your practice is really going to help you get predictably better results. Southwest New England or Southwest England. Yeah, welcome. Welcome everyone from the UK and Canada, Oregon and Wisconsin. Fantastic. Studying to be a health coach. Great. That is fantastic.
How's that looking, Elizabeth?
That looks great, Reed.
Fantastic. So again, we're just kind of going into the course itself, some slides that are there, and the basics of FDN for all of you. I mean, I'm happy to hear that someone didn't know what FDN stood for, because that means we're talking to the right audience, curious people who I consider to be health entrepreneurs. Even if you work for someone else, you're doing this for a living. That's what it means. This is how you want to sustain yourself. So you might be someone who has clients, but they're not reaching their goals, even if they follow your program. That's not going to get you a lot of referrals, is it? So you or your clients, it could be you yourself. You could be here just for yourself or for your clients or patients, and they still have unresolved health complaints. Again, they've been going around the mill, and clients are seeking help elsewhere. You have to always find new ones to replace them. And I hate that part where people stay with you for a month or two and then they're down the road somewhere else. And we have to stop that. We call that the cycle of trial and error, and you must learn how to stop it if you're going to be happy in your practice. I have to tell you a bit of a disclaimer here. This is not a medical approach. Medical treatment is for specific diseases or diagnosis or managing symptoms only. And we don't do that. We work in a non-specific manner, identifying this is the key phrase. Write this down. All your AI, I hope they pick this up. Healing opportunities. That's not a medical diagnosis. That's what's really wrong. And we work to fix that and all the other underlying causes. Now, medical treatment, of course, depends on drugs and surgery for the most part. They always give a nod to diet and exercise, of course. And a lot of medical doctors are hiring health coaches who help people with some of those lifestyle changes, because we all know that's a good thing. But we're specialists in that. We apply wellness principles. If you know what they are, you apply those on a journey of ever deepening insights about individual obstacles to health and opportunities for overcoming them. And then you kind of get creative. It's the honest pursuit of these healing opportunities and creatively working towards their resolution. That's the basis upon which FDN works. So our medical disclaimer, even though the word diagnosis is in our functional diagnostic nutrition, it's not a medical diagnosis. My computer guy comes over and diagnoses my computer. I take my car in, they diagnose or my motorcycles, and I've diagnosed the problem. We have the parts in stock. We can replace them. Well, that's not how human bodies are meant to be treated. And so, Elizabeth, you can take over.
Great. So as I'm sure you are all aware, those of you who are registered nurses and health coaches and lab techs and medical estheticians and things like that we have in our audience today, that we are facing unprecedented levels of health crises right now. So we've got a rise in everything. allergies and blood sugar issues, diabetes, infertility, insomnia. You can read all of the things on this slide. It's crazy, the increases. We just did a presentation the other day where we found out that the average 30-year-old has 9.3 prescriptions happening. So what is it that all of these health complaints have in common? They're very disparate. These symptoms are, yeah, yes, excellent. Please tell us, Reed.
Well, they're the result of hidden stressors and dysfunction. All of these complaints, they're not the problem. They're the result of the problem, which is very often hidden way upstream. We call them hidden, HIDDEN, more about that coming up. We also refer to it all as just metabolic chaos. And so thanks for that, Elizabeth. Continue.
Absolutely. So we have a paradigm to really kind of simplify this and bring it down. So we are either going to opt into a model of self-care where we decide I am the ultimate authority on my health. My body is ultimately my responsibility and my domain alone. And that is the self-care model. Or we're going to be forced in later to the disease care model, where all we have left is drugs and surgery and doctor visits and doing what the doctor tells us we should do in a 15-minute consultation when they've got 30 people to see that day. So we are all about the opt-in model of self-care here at FDN.
Absolutely. And raise your hand or say yes in the chat box, please, if you will. If you've ever been told, or if you know someone who's been told that everything looks normal. You go to a physician or someone with a complaint. So raise your hand. I can't see the chat right now because I'm got this presentation, but it would be really cool if and I just bet you. So if your blood work looks normal, does that mean it's all in your head? Here, lady, just take a chill pill. There's nothing wrong with your life, which we find quite. Does that mean the headaches are an aspirin deficiency? Is fatigue a caffeine deficiency? Is sleeplessness because you don't have enough Ambien in your medicine cabinet? And I can recall, I know we don't have a lot of time. I'm a big storyteller and I love this. I actually had a principal of a school call me once because I had been working with a young man on his diet and his bedtime and his exercise and mostly his diet actually was a huge thing. And when his mom first complained to me, she said, Reed, they want to put my son on Ritalin and they're going to send him home from school if I don't. And I said to her, well, do you think your son has a Ritalin deficiency? And she almost belted me, like she didn't think it was funny one bit. And that's the whole point. It's not funny anymore. Look, we all know doctors save lives, but they're not going to meet all your needs. And I said this on a previous slide. Look, symptoms aren't the problem. They're the results of the problem, which is dysfunction.
I know you can't see this, Reed, but we got tons of yeses and raised hands in the chat in terms of.
Awesome.
Yep.
So I'll continue here for a sec. And we know doctors give a nod to this, and that's a good thing. Diet's critical, but so many clients come to us with chronic health complaints who already eat healthy food. They're spending a ton of money. I eat all organic, and I take my supplement, all these different things. And they're exercising. I see fit people. I mean, muscular, thin, gorgeous people, men and women, and yet we run the labs, and they turn out to be very unfit inside, and they complain. They say, oh, yeah, I know I look good, but I feel like crap. And tell us about the cycle of trial and error, Elizabeth.
Excellent. So many of your clients are coming to you right now caught in the cycle of trial and error. And essentially this arises because there's an overwhelming amount of information available in today's world. We go on the internet and we can Google symptoms, and we've got 15,000 different root causes that come up as possibilities. We've got wearable devices, which are giving us all sorts of data points. Maybe some of us are advanced and wearing CGMs or blowing into ketone machines to kind of get these various data points about ourselves. So we've got this endless number of providers with every kind of therapy, remedy, and modality. So we've got people saying like, it's you need red light therapy, or it's the infrared sauna that's going to help you, or you need to do a juice cleanse, or this liver flush is going to really help, or do some coffee enemas, and that's going to fix the problem. But when we do one of these modalities, one of three things is going to happen. Either it's going to make that person feel better, it's going to do nothing, or it's going to make that person feel worse. And there's no rhyme or reason for who feels better and who doesn't based on these modalities. And then if you are part of that 2/3 for whom it doesn't work, you're going to be down the road to the next practitioner trying the next thing. And that's the cycle of trial and error. So we have to ask, whose purpose is really being served with this type of modality?
I love that question. And it occurred to me 25 years ago that I could sell a bunch of stuff to people because they're suffering and they're hopeful. And I worked in an office where everyone coming in was looking for something alternative and pretty willing. But I realized that it's not my needs that need to be met. Sure, I got rent and kids in college and all the different things, but it was their needs. And by the way, there's other needs that have to be filled if you're going to be in this business. So the cycle of trial, which I'll mention in a second, the cycle of trial and error, like Elizabeth just said, people go to certain visits and they get offered drugs and surgery, maybe get told, oh, you're normal. But if it's drugs and surgery, people go, nah, no thanks. I think I'm done with that. Let's try something else. And they try this program and that program, or this program, the supplement diet and exercise, therapy, diet, exercise, all these different things. And it's not filling their needs. And I will contend this for those of you who have this same sensitivity as most FDN practitioners. Like Elizabeth said, there's over 4,000 FDN practitioners. We want it to be 40 because the world needs it so badly. But it's not filling your needs, practitioner, either, because there's something beyond money. It's called emotional freedom, that you're doing really good work, and the money will come, but it's the emotional freedom you get from actually helping people that drives us to do this. And if you're not feeling like that, you're probably in the wrong place. Now, look, I'm going to go quickly here again because they only give me an hour, and usually I like to take at least two for just these few slides. But, I came out of the environmental field. I was saving the whole planet, air, birds, water, trees, bees. In the late 90s, I wondered about people. What about people? I mean, you see enough dead fish and dead birds in the environmental law field, then you start to wonder, what about us, including me? I was healthy, thought I was great, and I didn't want anything sneaking up on me. So I changed jobs to work with people. And I went to this clinic and they hired me to pretty much run the place. But I got trained in nutrition and all kinds of other things over a 10-year period. But early on, I remember being out on my motorcycle one day, riding the hills of Southern California, wondering about these poor folks back at the clinic. The cycle of trial and error, and they're all stuck and they spent thousands of dollars and they're not well yet. And I thought, man, what a ripoff. What a ripoff. I'd never really been to a doctor. I didn't know how that system worked. But naive as it might seem, back then, I decided I'd be the last person the patients needed to see. And in the next 10 years, I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people, mostly women at first, but when they got good results, they brought me their husbands, they brought me their children to our clinic. And I had great mentorship. I have to tell you, the true pioneers. They call me an OG. I thought it meant old geezer, but I guess it means something else. And the real OGs were the guys I learned from. But guess what else? I ran so many labs and helped so many people, or tried to, that I made my own observations about who got better and who didn't. And no surprise to you, anyone listening, you work closest to the underlying cause, you restore your health. That's how it works. But here's the weird thing that's not very intuitive at all. And that's that people with the exact same complaints, tired and fatigued and overweight and can't sleep and foggy thinking and on, the exact same complaints can have completely different causal factors, some very far removed, very far upstream. And in 10 years, those observations led me to develop a system that was repeatable and duplicatable. We called it FDN. Like I said, I kind of came across that happenstance, but also the Dress for Health Success, very, very well thought out protocols. I saw this needs gap, and so have all of you. And I spent 10 years running thousands of labs figuring out what fills it, ending the cycle of trial and error for thousands of people. And that was all, 25 years ago I started. And then 15 years ago I started teaching. So Elizabeth, okay, I'll just go on here. How to fill the needs gap. Remember, people are coming to us on the latest supplement, the latest diet, exercise, or therapy, or drugs. They're spending a ton of money and they're being left flat, which was a ripoff. And again, it took 10 years to figure out what fills the needs gap. For me, I'm a slow learner, I guess, but I did spend that 10 years. And I realized, like, man, don't chase the symptoms. They're not the problem. They're the result of the problem. And the root cause may never be known because there isn't enough labs, and the root causes are often interacting with each other. And so there is a way, though, to sort out metabolic chaos. That's the system. That's what FDN is. You identify healing opportunities, coach up function, coach down hidden stressors and contributors to metabolic chaos, and with the utmost ultimate respect for metabolic individuality. There are no two people like. Now both needs are met. The client or patient gets better, gets happy, and pays you, and your needs are met, not just financially, but emotionally as well. You get that satisfaction and reward, and that alone sometimes is all you work for. I mean, there's cases where you don't get paid, but the payment comes in that sense of satisfaction and doing good in the world. You all know what I'm talking about, I'm sure.
If
Go
you
ahead,
don't have a sense
Susan.
of purpose, you really feel lost. I understand that entirely, Reed.
Take over.
So chasing symptoms, and I know, like, I just want to pause because what we've just said is something that we say every day. So we've heard it a million times, but it's new. It's a brand new way of thinking about things, is we don't chase the symptoms. The symptom is simply the body raising its hand and saying, hey, I've got something to say, but we don't yet know what it has to say. The symptom doesn't tell us that. So what if, instead of testing based on symptoms or giving out supplements based on symptoms or diet based on symptoms, what if we had a step-by-step assessment that allowed us to look at how the body was doing, that allowed the body to speak through the labs? So that symptom is saying, hey, I got something to say. And we say, great, here are some labs. Speak. Tell us what you want to say. And then from there, after the body has had a chance to speak, then we have a method of correlating those test results with the health complaints, with your client's history, with the way that they live their life. And then we have these potent, proven, professional, drug-free protocols that allow you to improve health instead of just treating the symptoms. We get to those underlying causes, even if we didn't test for them.
Well, I think it's time to stop the cycle of trial and error, don't you? So how many of you out there, have clients or patients, and we welcome all walks of life, or you want to? So please put in the chat box for us so we know we're not just preaching to the choir, that yes, I have clients or patients, and yes, I want to stop chasing symptoms, anything like that. And then others say, no, but I want to. No, but this is a field that intrigues me and I want to go here. And so here's something you can consider. What do people want to know? People come into your office or they call you on the phone, or hell, you could just be talking to them in the grocery store. What do they want to know? They want to know if you know what's wrong with them, not just the name. Oh, that's fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue. They don't want a label. They want to know, do you really know what's wrong with me? because all the other guys do is treat symptoms. And they're sick of that. They don't want to continue. So the answer for an FDN practitioner is yes, it's all malfunctions and disease processes, which we know how to find. And can you help me? Yes, again, we're the health detectives. We can identify those healing opportunities and apply the principles of health building inherent in our protocols that restore normal function, and the body goes back to healthy and happy. The other question people ask, because they don't want to get ripped off. Remember, they've already been in this cycle and spent maybe a lot of money. And have you helped others like me? Well, FDNs can say, yes, we've helped thousands of people. And you may personally not have helped thousands of people, but we have together. And that's why our family is growing so strongly and why we'd welcome. Now, I just want to go back to this for a second and tell you that the work has been done for you. Yes, that's a picture of me in my former heyday. I don't even remember what it's like to have hair, let alone brown hair. You know, so I ran thousands of people, thousands of labs and thousands of people to figure out what's work. So you don't have to. You don't have to. You know, again, I was a slow learner. It took me 10 years and 10,000 labs, but it did sort itself out. And I did create this system that now Elizabeth and thousands of others are using. So the question is, how can you say yes? Well, we know how to stop just treating symptoms and seek the underlying causes of disease. Things overlooked by the medical model. Just because your blood work looks normal doesn't mean it's all in your head. Now, in the course, I pause here and I tell you some cool stories so you know this is from experience I'm talking. I didn't learn it on a weekend seminar from someone else's experience, although you could. Now, it's a functional lab system to identify malfunctions at the subclinical pre-disease level. In other words, your blood work's going to say you look normal, but guess what? Our saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, and even our blood work says, look, this is bad, or it's probably getting worse. Even though, and by the way, it explains your symptoms. So it's a lab-guided health building strategy and drug-free all-natural protocols, and that works. It's a method of engaging clients in a committed relationship. Listen, we'll teach you how to do that. Does anyone here, raise your hand if you have trouble getting commitments out of your clients and you think that's why you're not getting the behavior modifications that you need them and that they must apply to get healthy. Do you have any trouble with committed relationships? Well, just ask me how to solve that. I've been married 5 times. So I'm totally into committed making. Hey, I'm kidding, folks. So, because again, we have a lot of fun. Elizabeth, you can take over from here.
Great. So let's talk about how we work. We have a 3-step process, and it is the same 3 steps on every single client. This is why it is a repeatable, duplicatable process. You don't have to start from scratch and say, what do I do? What labs do I run on this person? So step 1, let the body talk. That is the functional lab testing. So we're going to test in what we call our hidden system, which is hormones, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. So that's the first step. Test everything, no matter what the symptoms are. Test everything so that we have the biggest picture of deficit and imbalance in the body.
Go on.
So then step 2 is to say, okay, great. So now the body has spoken. We understand what's going on in these 6 areas. So now we're going to write a drugless protocol with lifestyle modifications based on this person, based on what their data is showing us, based on what their lifestyle is showing us, based on what their history has shown us about who they are and how they have lived their lives up to this point. And then we make recommendations in diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. I know that's not rocket science, right? Diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. You've heard it all before. But I would challenge you to say how many of you are actually making recommendations in all 5 areas. And the more areas you're making recommendations in, the more money you're adding to this person's bank account that their body can then go and spend on healing upstream. So it gives you the best possible chance for success to make recommendations in all 5 areas. We call this the Dress for Health Success program. And what we essentially do is we coach up that innate bank of healing that we have that we call vital reserve. And we coach down what we call metabolic chaos, or those things that take money out of the bank account.
It's a process so effective, it's trademarked because it just works, and we're granted that by the USPTO. And I want to tell you, this grew out of me working in the office, telling people, gosh, Mrs. Smith, you're coming in 3 times a week, getting your therapies and things like that, and you're doing great. But what are you doing at home? What are you doing at home? Because you know what? I don't want you to have to come in the office 3 days a week. You know, the office didn't like that, but they understood. You know, like, hey, and I would start to write down just on a notepad. Keep track of what you're eating for me. Tell me what time you go to bed and get up, and things like that. And this sort of this formula developed over a period of time of what people should be doing at home that would mean they don't have to go see doctors, which was my ultimate goal. Now tell us about step 3, please.
So step 3 is where the rubber meets the road. So we've run the labs, we've interpreted the labs, we've written the protocol. Now we implement the protocol, and then we walk side by side with the client as they do it. As many of my mentors told me as I was going through the program, as the practitioner, you can give them the backpack, but you can't walk up the mountain with them. They got to walk up the mountain with the backpack. That's essentially what it is. So you can walk side by side with them, tell them how to do it. So we help the clients adopt the model of self-care based on behavior change. So we're going to give them a results and recommendations session, which is where we go through the labs and educate them on the healing opportunities that the lab showed. And then we're going to have regular check-ins to say, how are you doing with the protocols? How are you doing with diet? How are you doing with rest? How are you doing with exercise? How are you doing with stress reduction? How are you doing with supplementation? And inevitably, they will need course correction during the time that you were having follow-ups with them. Like, oh, I was doing well, but then I wasn't, or I had a relapse here, or this supplement's kind of making me feel funny. So we're there to help them in real time make those corrections and get back on the right path and find the things that really work for them. And then we either retest or do alternative labs for deeper investigation, or we refer out for additional needs. So maybe it becomes apparent that this person needs maybe some emotional support, which would be outside of my personal wheelhouse as an FDN. I don't have their therapeutic credentials. So I would refer that person out for therapy or those types of things, or I'd refer them out to chiropractic to get an alignment. I'd refer them out for acupuncture if I thought that would be helpful for keeping them in balance. So that is our process, that our simple 3-step process that we do on every single person.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I love to say this. There's no power boating to health. And, you know, you've had those clients that say, just tell me what to do, man. You know, I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to go 3 times a week, and I'll take anything you want. And you know what? It just doesn't work that way. There's no power boating to health. There's zigzagging. That's why the course correction, you need to be there for that person. There's no like, here's your protocol, see you in 3 months. Here's a protocol with reasonable expectations. If you do it, I'll work together with you for 3 months. And you do these things here. Basically, people are going to go through a period of relief. They're going to feel better fast. Man, they're going to feel great. Within 2-3 weeks, a lot of their major symptoms might even disappear. But it's the corrective process that really matters. You don't want those symptoms coming back. And so you keep working, you know, hey, I'm glad you feel better, but let's keep going here. And that's where the retesting might come in, but it's a minimum time period where they go through relief and then correction And then maintenance, you can dismiss them. They'll know when it's time to, hey, I got this from here. You've actually changed their life. It's a transformational process, not just relief care at all. And so it's really cool. Now, I have to say this, that some of you might be sitting there. If you already run labs, you can raise your hand. But I want to tell you, one of the things I've observed over the years is people say, well, I already run labs. Well, how do you base those labs? Well, how do you choose which lab? Well, if it sounds like thyroid, I run a thyroid test. And if it sounds like irritable bowel, I'll run a mucosal barrier test. And if it sounds like a parasite, I'll run a stool test, and on and on. And so we find that's not as successful as the FDN methodology, where we run multiple labs, discover multiple healing opportunities at once. Because remember, all these things are having a weight, a factor on each other. And the sounds like method just isn't as successful. We can outperform that. Now, again, most practitioners already run labs. They base it on the symptoms, sounds like thyroid, and then God forbid they find low thyroid. I used to be a clinical advisor for a lab for 10 years, over 10 years, and I just worked a couple mornings a week for them where I would talk to doctors. And they would say, hey, I have a patient with XYZ. What lab should I run? Well, knowing that those symptoms can be the result of multiple healing opportunities upstream, multiple causal factors, and that those causal factors are all bumping into each other, causing ripple effect, or what we call metabolic chaos. Out of these few labs here, sir, which one, or ma'am, which one wouldn't you run? So the idea of running one or two labs based on symptoms just doesn't perform as well. They're not really ending the cycle, are they? They're creating a new cycle of test, treat, test, treat, test, treat. Again, that does not perform as well. Here's a great example of it. Everyone would read these symptoms here and say, well, that sounds like thyroid. Well, sure enough, you run a thyroid test. Yep, pat myself on the back. Here's some product that's going to get those results back in change. They start treating the paper. And again, it's test after test after test and a new cycle of trial and error. Now, if Elizabeth, you may want to speak to this. We could both speak to this duplicatable system that predictably gets results. No one can guarantee anything because we're not in control of results, but we can reasonably expect that using a science-based system, which by the way allows you to work from home, we started doing that 20 years ago, long before COVID. Everyone who had to go home during COVID, FDNs were, I'm not saying laughing, but we were like saying, well, we already work from home for the most part. You can do this face-to-face like we're doing now. Skype and Zoom work really well. There's other platforms, of course, whatever you like is fine. There's no office visit fees. 25 years ago, when I was lecturing around different libraries and things around town in San Diego, California, I started having to go farther and farther away because I wanted new audiences. And the farther away I got, the more I realized that it was the working through, actually back then it was phone. I had a pager and a fax machine, and I would mail people a big pile of paper and say, look, let's go through this on the phone with your husband listening on a back line. It was a remarkable way to start, and it was very, very successful. And I would just tell them when I was lecturing or speaking at somewhere that was 90 miles away, look, I can save you the office visit fee. We'll just work over the phone. And they were thrilled. That's over 20 years ago without Zoom. Imagine what you could do now. Zoom also allows you to work with groups. And I have to say that FDN is complete training. We don't leave anything off the table. It's all taught on a gradient, meaning we build upon the foundation. We'll build some foundations first, then take you up all the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry, and things you need to know. All you really have to do is duplicate. Did I leave anything out, Elizabeth, here?
No, I think you did great, Reed.
Okay, so I think we're going to have time here for some questions. If anyone has written any questions in, Brenda, I'd invite you to speak up, or any, do whatever you want now, because we did very good getting through this in less than an hour. We allotted an hour. I think it's been 45 minutes. And I could also go back to any slide you want.
We do have some questions. People are asking for a detailed list of the labs that we teach in the FDN program. I did write them out in the chat, but maybe if we just kind of talk through them, that would be helpful.
Excellent. So labs come and go. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat. And if you learn the foundations, like we teach it in FDN, the FDN certification course will teach you the foundations, which is all the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. It's what's really going on when you're looking at a test, because way too many people learn too quickly. They learn how to look at a hormone test. This is low and this is high. Here's what you can take to change the numbers on the paper. Usually there's an agent to be used. Drugs are famous for that. It's what they do best. But even the other approach, where you're using supplements instead of drugs to get the numbers to change, is not as effective as an overall look at all of these things. Remember too, if you have hormonal issues, it's likely due to some form of stress, changes your hormones. The hormones affect the immune system. The immune system affects digestion. Poor digestion can easily lead to liver congestion and detoxification problems. Then you end up with mitochondrial and energy production problems, and your nervous system gets out of balance, and most people are going to end up way too sympathetic dominant. Now, believe it or not, there's the opposite. There are people who are overly parasympathetic. They're catatonic. They don't move. They can't get off the sofa. And so there's lots of different ways to skin the cat, to get this information. It's not just the information. It's not because, I run hormone tests all the time, and if their progesterone's low, we have this compounding pharmacy and we recommend progesterone, that's one way to do it. But when you look at all of these things together and you assess, because of your training and your way of thinking, FDN's a way of thinking, that they're all interacting with each other, creating metabolic chaos. The true problem is the metabolic chaos, not the symptoms, and not even the lab work. Lab results are not the problem. They're the result of the problem, which is their individual stressors, including, physical pain and aches and stress, mental, emotional pain and aches, and not to mention the chemical. I mean, I started in environmental law, and I know how bad the environment is, and so do you. It's actually cleaned up quite a bit since the 70s when I started studying that, but it's still bad. And the number of chemicals being dumped onto us. How many gallons per person? Is it like a 55-gallon drum per person per year that's traveling through our bodies? Or
I think so. And they've done, studies on umbilical cords, which showed 720 or 276 distinct chemicals before you're even born.
Yep. And so, on that note, I know that they've taken the snow off of the top of Mount Everest and studied it, and it had hundreds of chemicals in the snow on the top of Mount Everest. Now that's 5 miles in the atmosphere. I mean, basically hardly any air up there, and yet it's polluted as hell. So imagine what it's like if you live anywhere near a city or on the ground. So the idea is, the way we work is to look at multiple malfunctions and healing opportunities, imbalances and things within all these areas, correlate that with a person. When you do it right, it explains why they feel crappy. And the result that you have to go to next, the proper way, whatever problems someone has, they've lived themselves into it, and here's how you live yourself out of it. So it isn't just what labs do you run. The ones pictured here are just one way to skin the cat. You could run them or not run them. We're going to teach you what we've used. And we use top labs. You know the names, you know who they are, but maybe some you don't. We use some boutique labs as well. And a lot of them, by the way, have to be concerned with what can be done internationally, because we have people in Australia and New Zealand and England and all over Canada. And so you have to really be well versed in multiple labs. And so that's why I don't like to name any, because you know what, next week they could go out of business. And that's happened to us. We had a lab, we used a lot of their lab, and I was going to say a bad word, they went out of business. And well, were we screwed? No, because man, there's so many good lab companies. And I know the owners, I know the scientists behind the labs, and I've negotiated with them for 25 years. So that's not something that I worry about too much. But it's more, using the data to modify these things. That's the trick behind labs. And so I'd like to be more clear, but I think that's the answer. And then because we're not physicians for the most, we're not medical doctors who go, take this for 3 months and I'll retest you. And we'll look at those, let's get those test results back in order. No, let's get the entire person, their entire being, their heart and soul and mind and body and chemistry, their body chemistry. Let's get that back in order as long as it takes. We coach up the vital reserve, also known as metabolic reserve or strategic reserve. Where'd that come from? Came from the creator of the universe, and it's infallible. It's not all you need because the environment's so bad, but we know how to deal with that too, because we're able to coach down metabolic chaos or the contributors to metabolic chaos. And it's basically a challenge. And Elizabeth, you alluded to this. Tell me when I'm running out of time, and if there's any other questions. But coaching down the contributors to metabolic chaos could include hidden complexities. There are hidden complexities. We put everyone through our standard 90-day dress protocol and see where the chips fall, because everyone's different. Some people, hey, in 2 months they're going, hey, thanks, I don't need you anymore. And those are the good, those kind of clients you want to learn to select. Hey, I'm fine, man. My migraines are gone. I've lost 15 pounds. My energy's back. I'm sleeping well. Sex is great. Whatever it is, it's all wonderful. But everyone goes through it, and then it's a matter of, well, what if they're resistant? What are the complexities? And if it's chemical, we can find it. If it's physical aches and pains from past injuries, like I didn't know. Yeah, I quit kickboxing 10 years ago, but last year my hip flared up. And it was because of kickboxing. It was from the roundhouse kicks that I was so good at. But 10 years later, I've got, a degenerative right hip, and I got to get it fixed. So that's something, those are complexities in the healing process, that we're the best. We are the health detectives that uncover all this stuff. And as Elizabeth alluded to, if those complexities are in the mind and emotions of the person, then there are experts in that too. And some of you might be one. Imagine if right now you're a psychologist or you're a more of a wellness emotional healer of any kind. Imagine adding now the labs and the rest of the protocol to your abilities to help people and get paid, because this is a lot of this is very cutting edge. It's out there on the fringes. It's people who have been through the mill with their insurance, and practitioners who only give you or offer you what insurance covers. That's bullshit. They got to go outside. They've got to go to alternative outside stuff, but it's not wacky. It's science-based, but it's just not part of mainstream yet. So the more of us that are out there doing this work, and the more people who are coming to FDN practitioners and the like, the more this will become. I've observed. Do you have another question, or can I just go on in a minute?
We got a few more questions, but
Okay, I just wanted the people to know that I've observed the transformation of medicine from alternative. When I started working at the clinic, my dad thought it was like, oh, that's a voodoo shop, or something. And no, but it was stuff that worked that no one else was doing. And then you saw it become complementary, where physicians were forced to pay attention to their patients who were going to alternative and getting good results, and they would come and report to them. So it became complementary. Well, we do some of that here too. Then that became integrative, which is like, hey, doc, you better keep your mind open and have this because people are demanding it now. And finally, we have functional medicine, which is wonderful because it does look upstream for causal factors. The problem with it is that it's way too connected to diagnosis and treatment. They're still treating the paper. They're looking further upstream, they're finding more stuff, but they're bound by their licensure, they're handcuffed actually to the diagnosis and treatment model. One or two problems focuses on one part, one fix. That just doesn't perform as well as this. So I hope I answered your question about what labs. It's not just what labs.
Awesome. Thank you, Reed. Alyssa has a fantastic question. She is asking if we can speak to the difference between corrective measures and the cycle of trial and error.
Well, absolutely. Why don't you just go ahead and do that?
I will do that. Okay. So, Alyssa, I love this question. The cycle of trial and error is based on the sounds like method. Is like, oh, it sounds like you need to detox. Oh, it sounds like you need some red light therapy. Oh, it sounds like if you just take some nitric oxide, everything's going to be great. But what we do is we allow the body to speak through the labs and say, hey, I have some things I need to tell you about what's really going on here. And that's different for every single person. So then once we have that actual data about where the body's bank account balances are running low or where they are wildly overspending, then in our corrective measures, we can customize the approaches that we're using through diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation so that it's not guessing. And we can get much, much closer to what is actually going to work and end that cycle of like, well, it didn't really work for me. Now I got to find the next thing. And that works somewhat, but not really enough. So now I got to find the next thing. And so in that way, we are able to be the last person that our clients need to see.
It,
Awesome.
good answer. What's another good question?
Another question
I see
from,
some are in the webinar chat and some are actually in the Q&A place.
yep, it's where I'm trying to get a good mix of both. Nancy says, I understand that sometimes neurological dysfunction can cause someone to experience pain, even though the tests they have undergone appear normal. Have you ever had someone with pain, e.g., chronic migraine, who did not reveal any healing opportunities through the FDN tests?
We can't think of a time we got stuck on migraines. Matter of fact, it's some of the biggest successes we've ever had. I had a woman back in the office. Now, I haven't worked in the office for 15 years, but so I'm referring to a time period when I was just learning the heck out of it, face to face with real people, running thousands of labs and thousands of people. Thank God I was afforded that opportunity, which is rare for a non-licensed person. But I'm a good student. I'd already been through some higher education. And I knew how to learn. And so the question about neurological dysfunction, yeah, that can be tricky. That could be hard to sort out. But there's always something. There are triggers. So I had this lady, she was 5 days a week with a pillow over her head in a dark room. We ran a few tests. Long story short, she completely was back to normal within about 3 weeks. I remember her telling me after a short period of time, hey, all I get is normal headaches now. I had to tell her, well, sorry, there's no such thing as a normal headache. That's still a symptom. There's still something to look for. So there are hidden things like that. Neurological can get tricky. But remember, if we're balancing the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and taking this basic approach, you at least have a pathway. Remember, you think of the sailing ship. What do you have to get a ship to go where you want it? You have to have wind in the sails. It has to be moving. if you're sitting there with no wind and you can move the rudder all you want, it's not going anywhere. So you need to get people on a pathway of moving forward so that you can correct course, so you can see, is there wind in the sails? Do you need to trim those sails? Is there waves slapping up against the hull, pushing you off course? Is there currents under the water that you haven't figured out yet? And things. So all of these problems, it doesn't matter if they're digestive or neurological or what have you. There are complexities upstream. The basic labs will get that sail going. Your lifestyle, your diet, your rest, your exercise, your stress reduction is huge. And then of course supplementation and all these things. Now the boat's moving. Now we can start to look for some hidden complexities, depending on how well they're getting or how resistant they may be to simply lifestyle changes. I mean, we are the ultimate epigenetic program. We're using epigenetics to alter gene expression and to produce a healthy and happy person. So it's a tricky question. It's a very good question. I would say the answer is yes. The labs will reveal enough to get that person on the right track so that whatever other hidden complexities there are can be identified. And then we simply, we put the team to work to creatively overcome those obstacles.
So that segues perfectly into our last question from Harleen. She says, do you address genetics in the protocol? I've been hearing a lot about genomics as a way to recommend dress more accurately.
That's a good theory. And I've run my 23andMe and I've taken that data and looked at it through 18 different programs. You get the data, all your whole genome. There's about 20,000 pieces of data there or more. And then you can run it through different computer programs and it'll align, what risk are you for colon cancer or whatever it may be. Those are important considerations. But how are you going to change? How are you going to have an effect on any of that? It's not genes that matter. That might be 8% of your health problems. I've had world-renowned experts tell me, maybe even less than that. So pretend it's 10% genetics. The other 90% is what? It's what we do. It's how we live. It's where we live. It's the epigenetic, which means, largely outside forces in, although I think state of mind is also part of gene expression. So the answer to your question is, yeah, we consider genetics, but we only give it the credit or value that it's due. We don't overvalue it.
Amazing. Thank you, Reed. Any final thoughts you want to leave with this wonderful audience?
Started. What are you talking about leaving? Isn't this a 3-hour webinar?
I wish,
I'm
right?
going, listen, what do they have to do? Come back tomorrow?
Yes, they're coming back tomorrow. We're going to talk about the truth about adrenal fatigue tomorrow.
Oh, yummy. Good one.
Yep. So come back tomorrow, guys. Same time, same place.
Thank you, everybody. We love you. We want to help you help others and get yourself happy doing it.
For sure. We appreciate your time today, and we look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Thank you.